After being asked a number of times whether or not From Software's new remaster of Dark Souls 2 is worth picking up, I decided to do a side-by-side playthrough in both the original Xbox 360 version and the new remastered Scholar of the First Sin edition on my Xbox One. This is just a small look at the new enemy and item layout, and while it doesn't touch on any of the additions they've made to some of the levels, secrets, and even parts of the game progression, it'll give you an idea of the effort From Software has put into what I feel is more of a Dark Souls 2.5 than a straight remaster. Now, when I say side by side, I don't mean I'm going to run it split screen. It's more of a running at the same time sort of playthrough, and I'll jump back and forth between versions whenever I come across something different, which, as you're about to see, is a lot. So, let's jump right in. The main playthrough here is going to be done in Scholar of the First Sin, the Xbox One version, but I'm going to jump back and forth pretty much a lot, and contrary to what I just said, it's going to be mostly to show similarities, because in this portion of the run here, this beginning here, there's more of a difference in enemy types than item layout, and you'll see right here in the beginning here, you got that useless piece of junk, the rusted coin. And see that DS2, that's what I'm calling the original version. So you jump back to the original version, and rusted coin as well. So jumping back to Scholar of the First Sin, SOTFS, and let me just fast forward through here and there. So I'm going to jump back and forth like that whenever I get to an item to just show you it's the same or different. And then I'll just point out the differences between enemy types. So there you go, human effigy back in the original, human effigy, you got the same thing there. So, contrary to what I said, the items in this portion of Forest of the Fallen Giant are pretty much the same exact thing, except for a few minor things, and one kind of huge thing. But enemy-wise, this is when you run into a pretty huge difference. What the... Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking when I first stumbled into this. That's a big fat giant troll, and this is technically the first playable level in Dark Souls 2. That is a tough enemy. But, thankfully, as you can see, he doesn't attack you if you leave him alone. So, just don't get too close and leave him alone. But, you see how this guy snuck me from behind? This guy's actually all the way back. He's hanging out right here to the right when you first come out. He's laying down waiting to be triggered as you come out of that cave, so just be aware of that. He used to be walking around, but, you know, now he's laying down waiting to be triggered. More or less, the enemy layout, obviously, except for the big fat giant troll, more or less, the enemy layout in this first little part right here is kind of the same. You know, they moved around a couple, and I think maybe they added 2. But they're definitely 3 or 4 of them are in completely different places. You know, like that guy coming out of the cave there. That, of course, is not a change. I just felt like hitting it because you gotta hit stuff. But here is a missing item. You know, you jump back to the original, and that's where a life gem used to be. But you'll see later on that I think they made up for that in adding a different item later on. But back here in Scholar of the First Sin, you can see these enemies are pretty much the same. I mean, you used to get rushed by, I think, 2 or 3 dudes when coming down there that you don't really anymore. But now, see, you got this same guy and the guy peppering you with arrows, but above this guy right here, where he came from, is somebody standing up on that ledge waiting for you to attack that archer. Before they trigger, right above, right here. He's just hanging out up there waiting for me to go after the archer. And you also got somebody lying down behind the archer who's waiting for you to attack as well. So you're going to get jumped by 2 dudes as soon as you go after that archer, so just be aware of that. And if you played the game a lot, like I do, you may have noticed that there is a missing dude down there. And I'll get to that in a second. But, you know, considering the way they shuffled around stuff, you know, they just moved that guy. Maybe they added 2 people to this, but it seems like they just moved people around more or less. You know, the guy that used to be laying right there, waiting for you to pick up this item, gone. You know, as soon as you pick this up, he would jump. Well, unless you took care of him, which I always do. But back in Scholar of the First Sin. Now we're going to head upstairs to this hollowed out tree area. And there's actually a lot of change up here, you know. As soon as you come up here, you can see right away there's nothing going on. And somebody on that tree is missing. So back in the original, you come up, you got these 3 dudes milling about, and you got that Hyde's Knight leaning up against the tree. And he's not back here in the original one, which is kind of a big change, but those Hyde's Knights, actually that green blossom is new as well, that item I just picked up. But most of the enemies, and there's probably, I don't know, 8 more enemies here, but as you can see, they're all just laying down, waiting to be triggered. So, while there's a lot more enemies, it almost seems like this area's a lot easier. You know, because you're not rushed like in the original. When you come up here, they bum rush right away as soon as you get up there. Plus, you got that archer up there peppering you with arrows. And you have a projectile throwing dude up there, but this time he's throwing fire bombs, which do more damage, but they don't have the same range as that archer did. So it almost seems like this area is a little bit easy. I am kind of upset about not having the Hyde's Knight though, but Hyde's Tower of Flame, you can always go there and grind on these dudes and get that same sword if you want to. So item-wise, these are the same 3 items around the tree right here. That broken straight sword, the human effigy, and the life gem. But here you have the human effigy, and where that dude just stood up is where the life gem used to be. But all they did was shift it around the back of the tree and replace it with, you know, another triggered enemy there. But see that you got a different type of guy upstairs there, and he's chucking fire bombs. That's actually a new item too, giving you the ability, I guess, to dual wield those broken straight swords early on. But I mean, there's just enemies all over the joint. So there's that life gem then, and there's that freaking firebomb around the back of the tree. But yeah, they're everywhere. There's enemies everywhere. But it does seem easier just because, you know, you don't have that archer and, you know, everybody's just laying around. So, coming up here, as soon as you get on the ladder, get right back off. Because you got this dude coming down on you. And he will kick you in the face and knock you off the ladder. I mean, of course, you know, you could swing at him while you're on the ladder, but I always seem to lose that fight. So, coming up top, you no longer have these 2 guys, although technically, you know, I guess one of those guys was coming down the ladder, so you're missing 1 guy, but you no longer have this fight here on the stairwell. I'll say that much. Which, you know, with the mace is a pretty easy fight for me most of the time. Oh, I got my first helmet. Oh, very, very nice. So, coming up here, you got that same item. If you cut up around the corner here, you got that soul of a nameless soldier. Yeah, but see, the enemies are different now. You got this guy with a sword that chucks fire bombs at you instead of the archer. Oh, that sucks that he doesn't die. If I fall, I die. You got that same gap with, I believe the same items. Yep, same items. Short sword, soulful lost undead. Didn't I say something about item changes? Yeah, that's not working out, is it? Trust me, they changed some. You'll see in a little bit. There's a pretty big one. But back here down on the bottom, you got that same guy kind of laying in front of the fog gate there. Well, I guess he's on the other side. But, you know, you got guys all over the joint down here. There's got to be, I don't know, look at all the bodies all over the joint. Look at that guy, man. He didn't even take any damage from falling. It's patently unfair. The whole area is littered with bodies. Oh yeah, the item down below here. I believe it's the same thing that it was before. Yes, 10 throwing knives, soul of a nameless soldier, same thing. So again, same item. Big change, big change. Wow, the enemies are different. That much you can see, right? So back up to the fog gate area. There's some more enemy layout changes coming up. Right into this room, when you drop down here, there's now another enemy behind those boxes right there, laying down, waiting to be triggered as soon as you come into the room. So just be aware, if you don't put these guys down fast enough, you're going to have a third guy on you. Luckily, he's just a, you know, an unarmed dude, so it's not like it's that big of a deal, but they can still harass you pretty bad if they get a hold of you. And behind this cabinet right here, you got your wood bolts, for those of you that are able to wield that crossbow early on, which clerics are, as long as you add 1 strength. Same doofus waiting to be backstabbed there, back in Scholar of the First Sin, but when you turn around, you got boxes down the hallway. You got that same enemy, but now he's on the sneak attack, chilling out there on the right. Plus, you got another guy coming at you there. And I get pretty badly harassed here because I'm trying to, you know, two-hand these guys, and my pattern, my routine of mowing through with the one-handed isn't transferring very well to my two-handed skill. Luckily, I make it out of here all right. But anyway, you got 2 enemies there now, instead of just that one guy, and he's gonna sneak you as soon as you get through there, so you got to be tricky with that roll. Now remember in the beginning how I said there's that item that's missing that will be made up for later on? Here it is right here. Life gem, just chilling out there. So that kind of makes up for it. You know, it was in the beginning, they just shifted it to the end now. These guys, same layout, these 2 doofuses and the guy throwing fire bombs at you. But you can see that I'm hanging out close to the wall, and there's a reason I'm hanging out close to the wall here, and I'll show you in a minute, and that's one of the new additions to this area right here. Stab this dude in the face. This is kind of a waste of throwing knives though, isn't it? But yeah, you don't got that guy over there either. But now you got this guy. You got an archer just sitting up there waiting to shoot you in the face as you're trying to take out those enemies. And he did some decent damage to me before I realized what was going on. This guy, no longer here, but you got the same item, the buckler, for those of you that have a lot of dexterity early on. And getting near the end here, up top, I'm not going to deal with, you know, dropping down to the bottom over here, but I will say they added 2 ironclad turtle dudes down there. But up here you got that same item, but you got a different enemy, and this guy comes pretty much out at you right away as soon as you get close to that area, whereas the other guy would wait for you to pick up these witching urns, this guy right here, before coming at you. And he's got a halberd, so it's a different enemy and he's triggered differently. Which would be most of the biggest differences here, right? It's the enemy layout and numbers as well. Types and numbers. But coming into, back in Scholar of the First Sin, coming into the bonfire area, you got the same layout, Malench is chilling there, you got the bonfire. And then I'm going to show you upstairs, which is a pretty big item shift. Although you do run into it a little bit later on, it's a pretty huge deal when you first run into this. So in this room up here, knock on the door, smash it to pieces, boom, you got a Titanite sucker right there. Bash that guy, pick up 2 Titanite. And so you got 2 items in this room instead of just that one. Now, this one is the same thing. It's the hand axe, radiant life gems, back in the original. But that other one here is, I guess right now I don't have a helmet, so you get your first crack at a Hollow Soldier helm if nobody's dropped one yet. You get one of those, which I guess, obviously, a good idea. And back in the chest, you got the same thing. You got your small leather shield, I believe. Yeah, and repair powder. So you got the same thing there. Now you see the guy laying down there in the corner? You don't have him in this one. See how dark it is too? It's kind of cool that it's like legitimately dark. But that guy is not there. He is now moved over there behind the door. Now it's the same thing. As soon as you turn your back on him, he comes after you. So they just moved him into the next room, I guess, for people that think, he's not there, and just walk away. But here's the huge deal. Open the sucker up, look inside, and if you've played this game a lot, you know exactly what's missing here, and it's kind of huge. So back in the original here, open up, look inside, Estus flash shard. That's kind of a big thing to be missing. Now, like I said, you run into it later, but that's kind of a huge thing to move. So, mainly what you saw throughout this little bit of a run was most of the bigger changes are in the enemy shuffle. You know, some newer enemies in areas that you haven't seen before, and a lot of change up of the enemies. You know, some of them are still in the same places, but there's a lot of changes and some item changes as well. So, there you have it.